Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we continue reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6. We have started chapter 4, and today we are going to read the text 24. Does anyone remember what we read yesterday?
Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna. So in the last time, the Soma was talking to the Prajas about remembering to do their duties of wishing for the prosperity of the citizens and taking care of them as protectors. And then he continued to advise them about, the creator of the living entities is the Lord, and that in self-realization, they should understand that they have to be more calm and stay Krishna conscious about the living entities and be as maintainers and protectors of them, because they are also prajas. That's their duty. And he also highlighted about these are all living entities: the fruits, the flowers, the legless entities, and all kind of living entities are eatable by others, and the food and grains are for humans. He also said about, however, the cows are never meant to be killed or eaten by human beings, and the Gaurakshas have been, the Shastras recommend the Gaurakshas to give full protection to cows because they are the mothers of human society. So
The Vaishyas. The Vaishyas are the cow protectors.
Yes, the Vaishyas. Yes. And he also said about we have to because in self-realization, we have to try to transcend beyond the influence of the modes of the material nature, because the contemplation of objects of senses, in contemplation of the objects of senses, we develop emotional connection to the desires, and then that develops attachment. So we have to maintain, we have to maintain our higher intelligence. We have to continue to chant. We have to maintain that spiritual strength. And that is possible only with pure devotees, association with pure devotees, getting the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, very important to get the knowledge from Mahajans, stay with them, be thankful that, I'm actually very thankful that we are blessed to have you, Shilpa. Hare Krishna. And be with the gurus and always be thankful to them, transcend the modes of material nature, and come to the spiritual platform of Brahma Bhuta platform. So like how Arjuna also was always in love, and he took the shelter of Lord Krishna, he surrendered to him, and he took the shelter in the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. So keep keep those things in mind all the time. And he also told the prajas, whatever the trees are still remaining. Yes, Pracheta, sorry. Yeah. He also told the Prachetas, whatever trees that are still remaining, let them be happy. Let them be there. So he was a good advisor. And like you said, we always should look for, good friends who can always give good advice to us, stay in their association. So that's really so good for us. And so after pacifying Prachetas, he gave them uh, his daughter from Pramlocha Apsara, a beautiful daughter. She was very beautiful. And
Not his daughter. She was the daughter of the trees.
Daughter of the trees. Okay. Pramlocha Apsara's daughter. Pramlocha Apsara's daughter. Yeah. So, and then from her, they begot a son, Dakṣa. And this is when he has regained his previous opulences by being born again. And he continued, Dakṣa continued to do his work of populating. He had many daughters, and he was very affectionate to his daughters. He had no son. And through his mind, he created different type of living entities. But he still felt it's not enough. And that's why he went to the Vindhya mountain and he did his austerities to please Hari. And there is where he did the Haṁsa-guhya prayer. And yes, and he did not make this prayer. He followed it through the Shastras. This prayer is he offered the respectful obeisances unto the Lord, even though we are all unable to see him. And he said about how he thanked the Lord about how he possesses the potency for unfailing knowledge, and that he is the supreme willpower. He transcends the position, understanding that he, the Supreme Lord, transcends the position. He's a transcendental position, sorry, and that he's the owner of the illusory energy. Has all the omnipotencies. He is not perceivable by us, by the conditioned souls, because we are under the influence of modes of nature. And we are accustomed to material vision. So it's inconceivable to us. And he also said about Swayambhuva exists in his own spiritual potency, understands God. We have to understand God by pure devotees. He said it again, by being in association with pure devotees, being at
What is that,
in association.
Swayambhuva? I'm sorry, what is
Did
that?
you? Yeah. You mentioned yesterday about Swayambhuva exists in his own spiritual
That
potency?
he has no cause. Yes, that he has no other
Yes,
cause.
yes. He is the cause of all causes. And that we have to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by being in association with pure devotees through Mahajan's teachings, Lord Shiva, as Lord Shiva, Narad Muni, and they all understood it through the authorized knowledge through Bhagavad
So
Gita.
So well, yes, thank you so much. So
Mm.
yes, Dakṣa is speaking the Haṁsa-guhya prayers, and the first verse he points out the position of the Supreme Lord, as you rightfully mentioned, the position of the Supreme Lord, that he is the owner of the material energy. He is the cause of all causes. There is no other cause. So he explains, or he points out rather, the position of the Supreme Lord, his omnipotency. So we are going to continue now. Thank you very much for that. And we are going to go on to the second verse of the Haṁsa-guhya, that is text 24. Na yasya sakyam purusho vaiti sakyu.
Na yasya sankhyan purusho vaiti sakyu.
Sakha vasansam vasata puresman.
Sakha vasan samvasata puriyasman.
Guno yatha gunino vyaktadrashtis.
Guno yatha gunino vyakta drishte.
Sorry. Tasmai mahasha. I'm sorry. Tasmai maheshaya namaskaromi.
Tasmai maheshaya namaskaromi.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As the sense objects, form, taste, touch, smell, and sound cannot understand how the senses perceive them, so the conditioned soul, although residing in his body along with the super soul, cannot understand how the Supreme Spiritual Person, the master of the material creation, directs his senses. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Person who is the Supreme Controller. So the individual soul and the Supreme Soul live together within the body. This is confirmed in the Upanishads by the analogy that two friendly birds live in one tree. One bird eating the fruit of the tree and the other simply witnessing and directing. So which is the bird that is eating the fruit? The Upanishads are saying that there are two birds, comparing like the soul and the super soul and the body. So one bird is eating the fruit. Which is that?
The soul.
Living entity. Yeah. The soul, the individual living entity. And the other friend who's witnessing, who is he compared to?
The super soul.
Super soul, that's right. So although the individual living being who's compared to the bird that is eating is sitting with his friend, the Supreme Soul, the individual living being cannot see him. So the Supreme Soul, the Paramatma, the Super Soul is our best friend. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, I'm the best friend of every living entity. We think we are the best friends of everyone. We try to be best friends of everyone. Sure, we can be best friends with some, but or not of everyone. But Krishna is the best friend of everyone. He is accompanying each and every one of us in our journey in this material world. And what is he doing? Actually, the super soul is directing the workings of his senses in the enjoyment of sense objects. But as these sense objects cannot see the senses, the conditioned soul cannot see the directing soul. So we had heard earlier that although the eyes are directing the hands and legs, but the hands and legs cannot see the eyes. We had read it a few verses earlier. Similarly, here's the same thing is mentioned, that the Paramatma, he is guiding us, or he's saying you desire in this way, okay, you can enjoy in this way. But we are not able to see Paramatma, although he's sitting right next to us. He's fulfilling our desires, but we can't see it. The conditioned soul has desires and the Supreme Soul fulfills them. When the conditioned soul is unable to see the Supreme Soul, thus Prajāpati Dakṣa offers his obeisances to the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, even though unable to see her. Another example given is that although ordinary citizens work under the direction of the government, they cannot understand how they are being governed or what the government is. So Prabhupada is giving another example. We had read the example earlier that the hands and legs, although being directed by the eyes, cannot see the eyes. So now another example is that we, ordinary citizens, we cannot understand how the government is working, although we are following all the rules and regulations that are laid down for us. So in this regard, Madhvacharya quotes the following verse from the Skand Puran, Yatha Rajya Priyavatam tu Pritya Vedena Chatmana Tatha Jivo Na Yat Sakhyam Veti Tasmai Namostute. As the various servants in the different departments of big establishments cannot see the Supreme Managing Director under whom they are working, the conditioned souls cannot see the Supreme Friend sitting within their bodies. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme, who is invisible to our material eyes. So we can see, here Prabhupada is mentioning a similar prayer, which is in the Skand Puran, that although we can't see the Super Soul, but one needs to offer obeisances to him. We may say, oh, well, I can't see, so how do I believe in the existence? But then we say we are intelligent. We can't see our intelligence, or we can't see our mind, but then we know we do have a mind. Similarly, the Super Soul is there within us. And It's our duty to offer respectful obeisances to him. Devo savusha manavo bhutamatram.
Devoksha manavo bhutamatram.
Atmanamanyam cha vidu param yat.
Atmanam anyam cha vidu param yat.
Sarvam puman veda gunamscha tajkyo.
Sarvam puman veda gunamscha tajgya.
Na veda sarva yamanantam ide.
Na veda sarvagyam anantam ide.
Because they only matter the body, the life airs, the external and internal senses, the five gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch cannot know their own nature, the nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. But the living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life airs, the senses, the elements, and the sense objects. And he can also know the three qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, he is unable to see the Supreme Being, who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So material scientists can make an analytical study of the physical elements, the body, the senses, the sense objects, and even the air that controls the vital force, but still they cannot understand that above all these is the real spirit soul. Yeah, we have done a material science. It's done so much advancement in material things, but does not know anything about the soul. We are not taught anything about the soul. There's so much more and more knowledge we are getting about our body, of everything around us, how to manipulate the different elements, but we are not being taught of the soul. Not very easy to understand. In other words, the living entity, because of his being a spirit soul, can understand all the material objects, or when self-realized, he can understand the Paramatma upon whom yogis meditate. So here the Haṁsa-guhya prayers are saying that the soul can understand the sense objects, the gross elements, the subtle elements, but they cannot understand the soul. They're not conscious. The soul can understand because the soul is conscious. The air cannot understand what's happening, or the sense of the form. The smell cannot understand what's happening, but the soul can understand. And when the soul is self-realized, he can also understand the super soul. Nevertheless, the living being, even if advanced, cannot understand the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, for he is Ananta, unlimited in all six opulences. Of course, one can understand the Supreme Lord to the degree the Lord reveals himself, because the Lord is unlimited. He is omnipotent. His potencies, there's no limit to it. But to the degree that he reveals himself, to that degree, one can understand him. Yado paramo manaso nama rupa.
Yado paramo manaso nama rupa.
Rupasya drishta smriti sampramoshat.
Rupasya drishta smriti sampramoshat.
Yaiyate kevalyasva samastaya.
ईयते केवलया स्वसंस्थया
Haṁsa-guhya tasmai shushis-atmane namaha.
Haṁsa-guhya tasmai shuchis-atmane namaha.
When one's consciousness is completely purified of the contamination of material existence, gross and subtle, without being agitated as in the working and dreaming states, and when the mind is not dissolved as in sushupti, deep sleep, one comes to the platform of trance. Then one's material vision and the memories of the mind, which manifests names and forms, are vanquished. Only in such a trance is the Supreme Personality of Godhead revealed. Thus, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seen in that uncontaminated transcendental state. There are two stages of God realization. One is called Sunyeyam, Sunyeyam, or very easily understood, generally by mental speculation. And the other is called Durgeyam, understood only with difficulty. Two stages of God realization. One is easily understood, and the other is understood with difficulty. Paramatma realization and Brahman realization are considered Sugeyam, but realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Durgeyam. So it's easy to understand the Brahman and Paramatma, but to understand Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is difficult. One has to go further and further, like to do comparatively, it's easier to do undergraduation or graduation, but to do PhD is very difficult. You can understand like that. As described here, one attains the ultimate realization of the personality of Godhead when one gives up the activities of the mind. What are the activities of the mind?
Thinking, feeling, and willing.
Yeah. Then one may say, then what I have to do? I'll give up then how will I act in this material world? Well, what Prabhupada is saying, stop mental speculation in regards to God. We hear about God. That's the best way that we can, that's the only way we can understand God. We cannot understand Him with our mind. This transcendental realization is above Sushupti, deep sleep. In our gross conditional stage, we perceive things through material experience and remembrance. And in the subtle stage, we perceive the world in dreams. So when we sleep, we dream, and that's when our subtle body is active. We are in different places and we are taking different forms and different situations. But when we get up, we are in a different place. Then the gross body acts. So in the daytime, the gross body is acting. When we're sleeping at night, the subtle body is acting. The process of vision also involves remembrance and also exists in a subtle form. Above gross experience and dreams in Sushupti, deep sleep. And when one comes to the completely spiritual platform, transcending deep sleep, he attains trans Vishuddha Sattva or Vasudev Sattva, in which the personality of Godhead is revealed. So giving up the gross and subtle body, then the soul is liberated. We give up the gross body when we die, but we are not able to give up the subtle body. The subtle body continues to bring us to different other material bodies. But when we can purify both the gross and subtle body, then we will be able to see God. Like how if the window is very nicely cleaned, then we can look outside clearly. So because our consciousness is all contaminated, here it said, Our consciousness right now is contaminated, but when it is purified, then we will be able to see God. So purifying, not that, okay, we just take a bath. No, but we have to actually purify our consciousness. So bathing, of course, is important. Cleanliness, internal and external. Atah Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grayam indriye. As long as one is situated in duality on the sensual platform, gross or subtle realization of the original personality of Godhead is impossible. Sevan mukhe hi jivado swayam eva spurati ada. But when one engages his senses in the service of the Lord, specifically when one engages the tongue in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and tasting only Krishna Prasad with a spirit of service, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed. So, with our material senses, we are not able to realize God. Because we are on the mental platform, we are on the bodily platform, the gross bodily platform. So how can we realize God? Sevan mukhe hi jivado. Service to God begins with our tongue. With the tongue we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we honor Krishna Prasad. Food that has first been offered to Lord Krishna, and then we honor that prasad, and then we will be able to understand the Supreme Lord. This is indicated in this verse by the word Shuchi Satmani. Shuchi means purified. By the spirit of rendering service with one's senses, one's entire existence becomes Shuchi Sadma, the platform of uncontaminated purity. Because right now our consciousness is contaminated. We are thinking we are the body, we are thinking we are separate than God, we are independent than God. But when our consciousness is purified, then we will be able to understand God. So Daksh therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is revealed on the platform of Shuchi Sadma. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following prayer by Lord Brahma from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 6. Tathapi bhumat mahima gunasya te vibodham arhati amalantar atmabhi. One whose heart has become completely purified, my Lord, can understand the transcendental qualities of your Lordship and can understand the greatness of your activities. So when one is pure, then one can understand the Supreme Lord. So Cheto Darpana Marjanam. That's the first thing that happens when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, that our consciousness gets purified. Then we will be able to understand the Supreme Lord. We will be able to understand his name, fame, qualities, pastimes. Manishinanta Shriti Saniveshitam.
Manisinvantaridi sanishitam.
Swashaktibhirnava Bhischatre Vridhevi.
Swashakti
Vahinim yathada Vahanim yathada Runipanchadasyam.
Vahanim yathada Runipanchadasyam.
Manishaya Nishkashanti Godam.
Manishaya Nishkashanti Gudam.
Save Mama Shesha Visheshamaya.
Sarve Mama Shesha Visheshamaya.
Nishedha Nirvana Sukhana Bhuti.
Nishedha Nirvana Sukhanu Ti.
Sa sarvanama sacha vishvarupa
Sa sarvanama sacha vishvarupa
prasidatam aniruptatma shakti.
Vedatatam aniruktatma shakti.
Just as great learned brahmanas were expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices can extract the fire dormant within wooden fuel by chanting the 15 Samidhini mantras, thus proving the efficacy of the Vedic mantras. So, those who are actually advanced in consciousness, in other words, those who are Krishna conscious, can find the super soul who, by his own spiritual potency, is situated within the heart. The heart is covered by the 3 modes of material nature and the 9 material elements. The 9 material elements: material nature, the total material energy, the ego, the mind, and the 5 objects of sense gratification. And also by the 5 material elements and the 10 senses. These 27 elements constitute the external energy of the Lord. Great yogis meditate upon the Lord, who is situated as the Supersoul Paramatma within the core of the heart. May that Supersoul be pleased with me. The Supersoul is realized when one is eager for liberation from the unlimited varieties of material life. Actually, one attains such liberation when he engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and realizes the Lord because of his attitude of service. The Lord may be addressed by various spiritual names which are inconceivable to the material senses. When will that Supreme Personality of Godhead be pleased with me? In his commentary to this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur uses the word durvigyeya, which means very difficult to realize. The pure stage of existence is described in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, wherein Krishna says, Yesham tva antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanva moha nirmukta bhajante ma dhrida vrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. So Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he's mentioning the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying it's very difficult to realize the Supreme Lord. And what is the pure stage of existence? What Krishna is saying in 7:28. How can one understand? When one acts piously. So this piety is not material piety, but spiritual piety. Sinful actions are completely eradicated. One who's gotten this spiritual credit and they're completely sinless. All the sinful reactions are gone, means one is liberated. That's a liberated platform. No more delusion, no more in duality. So that's the pure devotee. And then what does he do? Engages in devotional service with determination, because he's completely understood the knowledge, completely understood his relationship with Krishna, that he is part and parcel of Krishna, that he is eternal servant of Krishna. Also in Bhagavad Gita 9.14, the Lord says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridvatam namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So here, Krishna in 9:14, what is he saying? What are the devotees doing?
They are always chanting.
Yeah.
Chanting with determination,
Yeah.
with determination and with great devotion.
And
Bowing down before.
bowing down before him. Yeah. And worship with devotion. Yeah. So this is what the devotees are doing, always chanting Krishna's names, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's glories. They are very determined to continue to hear and chant. They offer obeisances before the deity of the Lord. They worship him with devotion. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead after transcending all material impediments. Therefore, Lord Krishna also says in the Gita 7.3, Manushya Nam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So it's not easy to understand Krishna. Krishna himself is saying that majority of the living entities are just engaged in sense enjoyment. Then out of the few who are trying to understand the differentiation between spirit and matter, hardly one gets liberated, hardly one can understand Brahman. And out of thousands of those who can understand Brahman, hardly one becomes a devotee who can understand Krishna in truth. So not very easy. This is by mercy of Lord Chaitanya that we are able to hear about Krishna. We are able to chant his holy name. It's the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the mercy of the Panchatattva, that freely they're giving us Krishna, freely that anyone, everyone, without considering any qualification, Lord Chaitanya is saying, just hear and chant about Krishna. Take Krishna Prema. To understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must undergo severe penances and austerities. But since the path of devotional service is perfect, by following this process, one can very easily come to the spiritual platform and understand the Lord. So, by engaging in devotional service. This too is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, wherein Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yaman yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So Krishna is saying in chapter 18, text 55, he's saying, how can one know him? One can know God as he is only by devotional service. And when one is engaged in pure devotional service, then one can enter into the spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of God, the spiritual world, full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion. So it's by devotion, by engaging in devotional service, that one can actually understand. Because Krishna wants us to revive our love for him. You know, love for Krishna is there in each and everyone's heart. We have simply forgotten it. We have to revive it. How do we revive it? By hearing about him, by chanting the holy name, by engaging in devotional service. We can revive our love and devotion to Krishna. Thus, although the subject matter is durvigyeya, extremely difficult to understand, it becomes easy if one follows the prescribed method. Coming in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is possible through pure devotional service, which begins with Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 5, Pravishta Karna Randrena, Swanam Bhava Saroruham. The process of hearing and chanting enters the core of the heart. And in this way, one becomes a pure devotee. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, what is he saying? That how does one become a pure devotee?
Begins with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu.
Yes, when one hears and chants about Krishna, then this hearing and chanting, it enters the core of our heart. And then one becomes a pure devotee. It enters our heart, Krishna who's in our heart, he cleans our heart of all the material contamination. And then when the contamination is gone, one's original consciousness is revived. By continuing this process, one comes to the stage of transcendental love. And then he appreciates the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, when we love someone, we like to talk about them, we like to hear about them. We are very happy when some people praise them. We like to keep saying, oh, he or she did this, and did that. So similarly, the pure devotee, he's revived his love for Krishna. So he's always wanting to talk and glorify about the Lord. So it's a process and the goal. We hear and chant to revive our love, and when we revive our love, we continue to hear and chant. So in other words, a pure devotee by devotional service is able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead despite many material impediments, which are all various energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's able to see the Lord because he's pure, his consciousness is purified. He can understand the Lord, so he can see him. Easily making his way through these impediments, a devotee comes directly in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After all, the material impediments described in these verses are but various energies of the Lord. When a devotee is eager to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he prays to the Lord. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha kripaya tava pad pankaja stita duli sadarsam vichintai. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet, somehow or other, I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So this is the 5th verse of the Shikshastakam that Lord Chaitanya has left behind. That the Lord Chaitanya is telling us the mood of the pure devotee, how he's praying to Krishna, to Brajendra Nandan Krishna, Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, saying, I'm your eternal servant, but somehow or the other I've come in this material world. This material world is called the ocean of birth and death. And the devotee is praying to Krishna, kindly pick me up from this ocean of birth and death and place me as a particle of dust, as an atom at your lotus feet. So he's not saying, I want to become God, I want to become one with you. No. He's saying, I want to always be with you. I want to serve you. So being pleased with the devotee, that Lord turns all his material impediments into spiritual service. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes a verse from the Vishnu Puran. Ladani Sandani Samvit, Tai Eka Sarva Samstita, Lada Tapa Kari Mishrat, Vainu Guna Varjite. It's still going on. Huh? 2 more paragraphs. You'll have the time, or I thought it was almost ending.
Yeah, we can
Sneha?
finish this. Yeah.
We can. Okay.
Can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do it tomorrow too.
Long,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's what, because it's already 48. So we'll stop here. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.